Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Midweek Podcast, where we are continuing the conversation from this past week's sermon. I'm Rob, I'm the youth minister here, and this is Dave, our senior minister. And today we are talking about the main thing. We all hit the same goal when we all go in the same direction. John Kelly, our discipleship minister, preached yesterday on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And Dave, what was your thoughts on the overall theme? What he was talking about?
Well, it's obviously very, very, very important.
Yes.
Talking about as a church, when a church is only made up of 10 people, it's really easy to stay unified. But as a church grows, 50, 100, 150, 200 people, you get a lot more opinions and a lot more what people want to do, and a little bit of divergence. And so it becomes more and more important as a church grows to continue to refine its mission and its purpose and what it needs to do, keeping everybody moving the same direction. And so without a similar goal, without a similar common understanding, church is not going to be very effective in accomplishing what it wants to do. And so John did a great job of kind of articulating where we're going, how we do it, basically how do we continue year after year after year to stay focused. If you look in the Bible, most people, and I would say this is probably true of organizations as well, they start off great and they fade out. Very few people in the Bible finish strong. Yeah. They start off great and then they fade out. King David started off great and he got into the palace and faded out. And King Saul started off great, faded out. King Solomon, wisest man ever, faded out. Noah, he saves his family from the floods. He's the only righteous person on the face of the earth, and ends his life drunk and naked in a tent. It's amazing how few people in the Bible finish strong. That's true with churches too. If you look at every church, every single church started off as a church plant with dreams to reach the non-Christian, to do ministry and everything, and then how are they doing now? Yeah. So it's just that loss of focus, loss of purpose that is, I think, the default of life. And so you have to actively stay true to your purpose even as you grow. And I think John did a good job of articulating that.
Yeah, I think so. And to just kind of piggyback on what you were talking about, I've seen it time and time after again. And I think it's lack of communication in between leaders is why things fall apart. Because churches outlast the life of people. Mm-hmm. Most of the good ones do. Yeah. Churches. I mean, this building that we're in right now is 102 years old.
103 actually.
103 this year, yeah, which is crazy. There's some churches in Lexington that are older than this.
1800s.
Yeah, they've been going forever. And obviously, a senior minister isn't going to preach for over 100 years.
Yeah. If the congregation's lucky, he won't.
Yeah, exactly. And then time and time again, it's like every time there's a new senior minister, every time there's a new board of elders or whoever's leading the congregation, they have a different vision, or they don't want to come in and rock the boat, or they just kind of fall into the default of what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the start of not everybody going in the same direction.
It is. But just a couple things that John said, about of how we're going to accomplish, how we're going to stay. If you're not part of Catalyst Christian Church, what we do is we center our strategy around what we call just 2 time slots. We realize that I don't know about your life, my life. All I know is that I'm working full time. I've got kids in sports. Yeah. I'm married. I've got a yard to maintain. I've got family to look after, and I'm a very, very, very busy person. So is everybody in the church. Mm-hmm. And so I'm this whole 2 time slot thing came about as I'm a member of Rotary, and I remember being at a meeting where the higher ups came in and said, you guys need to get with the program. We've got this teleconference you can do, and this conference in Nashville you can go to, and this you can go to this, and we can take this course on how to be more effective servant. You can do this and this and he laid out these 20 things that we should be doing as Rotarians, and I walked out of there thinking, man, I'm doing well just to make it to the weekly lunches and the fundraiser once a year.
Yeah,
I'm too busy, so I'm out. And finally, one of the guys talked me off the ledge and said, "No, this fine. Just keep doing what we're doing." But as I walk back after that, I realized that I wonder if is that what church members think? Well, I need to do Sunday worship, I need to do community group, got to do youth group, got to do children's ministry, got to do men's Bible study, women's Bible study, got to do men's retreat, got to do. I can't. I'm doing good to make it to Sunday morning.
Yeah.
So I'm out, and I wonder if that was discouraging people. So kind of came back and said, let's focus our strategy. We'd love for people to be here every night of the week. We know it ain't happening.
Mm-hmm.
So let's be realistic. People will give us 2 time slots. What do we want them to be, and how can we use them most effectively? And so we decided Sunday morning and a community group.
Yeah.
That was what we're going to pour all of our resources in those 2 things. Obviously, youth ministry, but this is just for the average adult in the church. Sunday morning, community group. And when we announced this in church, this was about a year and a half ago, you could almost see this sigh of relief on everybody's face from just feeling like, okay, I can do that. That's something I can do. And that allowed us as a church staff to focus our energies on making those 2 as good as possible.
Yeah.
You can't do a lot of things well. You just can't. And so if we do 2 things, man, we can do those with excellence. We can do those well. We can focus those. We can center them. And then we can even tie those 2 time slots together with a common theme. So we preach about it on Sunday, discuss it, community group, really go deep, and everything like that. That's kind of been our strategy, and it's been amazing how much more focused and centered our people are, and how much attendance has gone up. It's amazing when we said, hey, this is what we expect of you, and it's not 50 times a week, it's 2 times a week. Most people say, well, I can do that, and that's something I can commit to, and they become a lot more regular, a lot more focused. So it's been, John did a very good job of articulating that.
Yeah. I love the aspect of less is more.
Yeah, it really is.
Because we see churches, and we even fell into the trap. It's like, okay, well, how do we engage more people? It's like, okay, let's do this. Let's add more. Let's add more. And it just puts more work on our plate, which we don't have an issue with doing more work, but we saw a lot less attendance and engagement in things whenever we add more. And even when you look in the Bible, for some reason, churches go against what God asks us to do. Yeah. He asks us to take a Sabbath. He asks us to fast, and he asks us to go and to by ourselves and pray. And it's always doing less. He always asks us to do less so that he can do more. And for some reason, as church leaders and as people, we think that we need to do more in order to accomplish things. And it's like, no, let's do less and make those things excellent, like you said, and great things will come out of it.
Well, it's amazing that you have to say let's do less, but let's make it excellent, because that just reminds me when I was a kid, my mom got these tapes for us I remember his name was Dr. Olney. It was called Where There's a Will, There's an A. She wanted us, he was this education expert.
Okay.
Can you imagine being an 11-year-old kid watching an education expert on
Sounds
how you
horrible.
should study? Yeah, it was horrific. And what he suggested was very good. It really was. He's talked about study habits, how you typically remember the first and the last thing in a list. That's your attention span. So the more first and last you have, the more you'll remember. So if you're studying, break it down into study for 10 minutes and stop.
Yeah.
Study for 10, okay, and everything. So he said study less but more often.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I was talking to a friend of mine who was at school. His mom got those tapes too.
Yeah.
And the only thing he heard was study less.
Study less, yeah.
So we were laughing about that. So yes, do less, but more intentional.
Yeah, more intentional.
Do less, but eliminate the things that are contrary to your calling. Those kind of things. I just have to qualify that because that just reminds me of my personality. Be like, oh, do less.
That's good. I think a lot of churches end up doing this thing where they have 10 things that they do as a church. If you ask them what do we do? They name off 10 things, and they're all doing good things. I feel like they're all excelling towards Christ, but they never come together as a point. They never reach that maximum. All of them come together, on a Sunday or whatever it is, and they accomplish something awesome. And that's where we came up with. We didn't come up with it. We definitely stole.
We stole everything. Absolutely.
We stole the main thing, which goes along with our 2 time slot thing, where on Sunday morning and community groups, we just talk about one thing. We don't study a multitude of things. We all go together as a church towards one thing every single week. And I think it's working.
Yeah, absolutely is, because it's amazing how centered people are when you have one thing per week and you discuss it in depth. I found that when we were planting this church, I had 4 jobs. You know, I delivered newspapers, substitute taught, coached, and pastored, and I didn't do any of them well.
No.
None of them were being done well. They were all being done mediocre, and it wasn't until I was able to stop working outside the church and devote all my time to being a pastor that I actually started doing it well.
Yeah.
And that's a real lesson. You can't do a lot of things well.
Yeah.
You can only do a few. That's the way God has made us.
Yeah.
And so when you're preaching something on Sunday morning and then you're studying something else in a Bible study, you're studying something else in a small group, you never learn anything well.
Yeah.
But you learn a bunch of things kind of surface level. But if you learn one thing per week and you really go into really understand it, that's when you start seeing the fruitfulness we've been talking about.
Yeah. And I wonder if this could translate into everyday life besides biblical stuff like church and community group. Can you imagine? I mean, you talked about how busy you are. And I would say that we are probably
you're about to get a lot busier. When your baby's born.
Yeah, but I would say, I mean, you are very focused, and I'm very focused on what I do. We don't like to add more things. It's like, okay, I have these 5 things or 6 things. I do them every week or every day, and I want to be really good at them. Can you imagine how many people do like 15, 20, like 30 things a week, and they're just not good at any of them?
Yeah, I know.
And it just keeps on adding more and more and more things. It's how can you minimize all these things? There's unlimited need, as we know. We see it in church. Money. You can be in a billion different organizations. You can
every one of them good too.
Yeah, every
great.
Every
one of them being good. Yep.
But what if everyone just focused on a few things in life?
Do a few things and do them well.
Yeah.
And that's we've really realized that the secret to faithfulness is elimination. I preached that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
The secret to faithfulness in a marriage is elimination.
Yeah.
The secret to faithfulness to a career is elimination of the other careers that want your time.
Yeah.
The secret to faithfulness to your calling as a church is elimination
Yeah.
of all the other directions that people are pulling you in and all the other things. And so elimination is the key to finishing strong. If you notice, all the guys in the Bible that finished poorly, they didn't eliminate. What did Solomon do? Solomon was the wisest man. What did he, instead of eliminating the competition, he married 700 women. And instead of eliminating, he added, and the Bible says it pulled his heart after other gods. And the same thing, churches, organizations tend to manage towards complexity. The longer you go, the more complex you get. More bureaucratic, the more things you add. That's just kind of the natural default state of organizations. And so it takes active shepherding, active watch of the leaders to make sure that you are not, becoming more bureaucratic and becoming more complex as you try to stay focused on your calling.
Yeah. I think a perfect example is our mission in India.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if I think we support 5 different organizations, and we give them all the same amount of money. Now the India mission is a little bit different because
people are individually. Yeah, individual.
But can you imagine if we gave the same amount of money, but we had 50 organizations we supported?
Everybody get $100.
Everybody get $100.
Yeah, and no one would get anything. No one would do anything. But look at all these things. Look at all these ministries we support. But none of them are being done well.
And we see the fruit of that with India. Now the other ones too, but this one's probably the biggest, where just a few kids. Ravi has ended up adding a ton more kids. I think it's over 100.
151 kids.
151 kids.
As of the recording of this podcast.
They got kicked out of their spot, and we are able to build them a new spot.
Yeah.
They have a whole new building that's almost done, and it's because we focused on one thing.
And the problem, and you don't know this, but because our orphanage and because Catalyst has been doing this for 7 years, I get requests from at least one a month of somebody in Pakistan or other people in India or Nepal or Tajikistan all these countries saying, "Hey, come help us. We need help too."
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
But it's exactly what we just talked about. If
Yeah.
you spread out so many, you do none of them well.
Yeah.
And I, as terrible as it sounds, we don't have unlimited resources. You don't have unlimited time, and therefore you can only do one or two things with excellence. And so we're going to put, we're going to have a few things. We're going to put a lot of resources into them,
Yeah.
and do them with excellence, as opposed to doing a whole bunch with mediocrity.
Yeah.
And so, and I've had to say no to some wonderful things.
Oh yeah.
Wonderful. I mean, yeah, these kids are starving over here, and yes, they need help, and yes, they're probably really good organizations that could really use, but we can't do it all.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people get burned out. That's where organizations lose focus. You have to be able to say no.
Yeah.
And so that's for the individual Christian who wants to go deeper with Christ. You have to be able to say no to all the things that compete for your time. And that is one of the things that we at Catalyst have been able to really hit, that John was talking about. Really stay. We do one thing.
Yes.
We the one thing, the main thing, and we have 2 time slots per week. That's where we do it. That's where we go. And not only is it focused, but it's sustainable. If you have a family with mom, dad, let's say 2, 3 kids, and they're elementary school, middle school, high school. They're involved in band, they're involved in soccer, baseball, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're in plays, mom and dad are probably both working and everything like that. If you have them engaged in 3 or 4 things a week, they're going to be leaving your church in 2 or 3 years, because it's unsustainable. Yeah. You can't, these people that jump in so much are the first ones to flame out and just burn out and leave. And so not only does your commitments need to be focused, they need to be sustainable. And 2 time slots per week is sustainable. Yeah, you can do that. Anyone can do that.
Yeah, and we do that with volunteers as well,
Mm-hmm.
Because naturally people, especially have a great experience in their first volunteer spot. They're like, "Ooh, what else can I volunteer in?"
Yep.
And we really push people. I know it sounds terrible, but we push people away. It's like, no, you don't need to volunteer.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I understand that you need to, or you want to, but you don't need to. You're already doing like 1 or 2 other things. Like, stop.
Yep.
Like, there's other people that can do it. And I've hurt some people's feelings saying that. But like you said, people they'll do it for a couple months and they'll realize like, oh, I'm just completely burned out. I'm doing all this in the church, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then they leave. And you're like, we saw it happen.
So one of the things that I've learned in 20 years of ministry is to be very careful when someone is incredibly enthusiastic. They come in and they're just wowed and they're awed and they can't believe how great it is and how amazing it is and everything like that. When they're they're just pumped up and hyped up and they are just on fire and they just think this is the greatest. I can't believe I found a church like this.
Yep.
Can't believe I found a community. Be real careful, because those are usually the people that are gone the quickest.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Oh, yeah.
And so when someone wants to jump in and volunteer in 20 different places and wants to do this and they want to join this Bible study, want to do this, I'm looking at somebody that's probably going to be gone in a month or 2.
Yeah.
And the people that are part of a church for a long period of time are the people that come in and they observe Sunday morning. And they usually ask some questions. And then after a little bit, they'll join a community group and they'll think about it for a little while and they'll ponder and they'll think about it. And then maybe they'll start volunteering and they'll start forming some friendships. And those are the people that are there for a long time. People that just jump in, boom, I can't believe this is the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Yeah. Every single time.
Yeah. And so not only does it have to be focused, it has to be sustainable.
Yeah.
And the enthusiasm and the awed and the on fire, that is not sustainable. No one can do that. No one does that.
Yeah. The last thing that John talked about that I want to hit on real quick before we run out of time is what goes along with going towards the same goal as our yearly theme. This is our 2nd year since I've been here of doing a yearly theme. I think you guys did one. Did you know?
Last year was the first one with the community. That was the big thing.
So last year was community. This year is fruitfulness.
Yep.
And next year is the adventure. What is the benefits that you have seen in the past year and a half of having one theme per year?
Well, it's kind of like a big main thing for the year.
Yeah.
That everything we do, we focus all of the sermon series around them and all of the extra things around them. Like last year, the theme was community, and that's when we synced up Sunday morning with community groups. We wanted to really emphasize that you need lifelong friendships, and that's going to be, that's how. So everything we did, community events, we started, we cookouts and a lot of social stuff where we just gave people to make friends, have fun. And then so the entire thing, the entire year was about community. Then this year is about fruitfulness. And it's more that we are called to produce the kind of fruit that God wants. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. That's what God wants in the lives of us. That's how you're a Christian, if you're doing those things. And so we started off with, how do we produce fruit as a church, the big church? When we stay true to our values, God blesses those. Then we move to the individual Christian. This is when we stay faithful to these things, God produces these things in us. And so with a year-long theme, it centers the preaching, and it also gives people a framework to understand what's being preached, as opposed to just a random sermon here. No, we're talking about fruitfulness. How does this fit in with this? Yeah. That's kind of the way I view the world. It's kind of the way I think. And so I've seen that is really giving people context to understand the sermons better. Yeah. And so next year is the adventure, which is going to be really, I don't know how it's going to go. I really don't. I don't know if people are going to engage in it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're just going to say, that's not for me.
Yeah.
I have no idea. We may fall flat on our faces next year, challenging people to the adventure and people yawning. I mean, it may happen. I don't know. But one thing I will tell you is if you do not challenge the people, you'll never move anywhere.
Yeah.
And so the adventure is by nature risky.
Yeah.
And the Christian life is by nature risky. So we will see how a year of talking about the adventure of Christianity, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
And we may halfway through the year pull the plug because we've lost half our people. And
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, a sign of a spiritual church is being able to tell things how God is being active in the church currently, which I would say He is, and being able to point in the future and say, and He will continue to be a part of our church because we're going to be doing all these things and following Him. And the sign of a spiritual dead church is just talking about the past and all the great things that have happened. And I think challenging the people, like you said, is a great way to make sure that Catalyst Christian Church continues to be a spiritual, healthy church for all of eternity. And we just like to go big all the time.
We do. Well, if I had a subheading for the adventure, it would be do something you've never done before.
Yeah.
And that is very strange when it comes to churches, because a lot of times the last words of a dying church, we've never done it that way before. Well, people who've never been on a mission trip go on a mission trip.
Yeah.
People who have never volunteered. Yeah. People who have never started a regular prayer life, start one. That's the adventure. Do something you've never done before. And it was inspired by a line in a tremendous book by Tim Keller called Why Christian Kids Rebel.
Yeah.
And this line just jumped off the page. It said, children who view life as a great spiritual adventure don't have time for rebellion. Mm-hmm. And it just jumped off, and I was like, wow. So maybe a church that views life as a great spiritual adventure won't have time for complacency.
I agree.
And so that's kind of the whole thing. We need to keep that vision, keep that purpose in front of our people, and constantly challenge them to do what they've never done before.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it goes. But that's going to be the entire focus of next year.
Yeah.
Do something you've never done before.
I know. And it's extremely exciting to think about it. We still have a half a year in fruitfulness. And we have some amazing things planned. We got 40 days coming up where we're going to focus on one thing for 40 days, which goes along with the whole one goal, one thing.
Yeah,
and then the Thanksgiving Christmas season starts, and the year's basically over at that point. Right when it hits November, end of October, it's like, well, it's basically January at this point.
It is.
And then everything's going to start. So I'm excited. I personally am excited. I know John and Jenny are really excited. If Jenny can get past VBS.
Yeah. By the way, if you're watching this
Yes.
podcast, listening to this podcast, VBS starts Sunday. We do VBS awesome. I'm sorry.
it's
We
the best.
love VBS. It's an entire church thing. We want you. So
Yes.
make sure you sign up. Go to our website. Come on Sunday morning. Sign your kids up. It's going to be awesome.
It is. It is. I think John did a great job on Sunday morning. We've said it multiple times. I think we've covered everything. He focused on just like one thing,
Yeah.
which is, I guess he
We
went
can
along
almost
with
go.
his-
We go in the same we move in the same direction. You got a
Yes.
good main thing, good concise main thing,
Yeah.
and if you haven't listened to the sermon, I highly recommend that you do that. And thanks for listening.
Yeah, we love doing the midweek podcast. If you are listening online, there's multiple different places you can find us. You find us on YouTube. You can go to the website. You can go to our podcast on YouTube or on iTunes. We got it on Spotify, Google Play. We got it everywhere.
And if you have questions, make sure you make a comment on our YouTube page or call us or text us or that kind of thing. We'll try to answer that on podcast the next week.
Absolutely. And just continue the conversation like we do. We do one thing, and we're going to talk about it all week long. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to share it. Tell everybody
I
about
just
it.
got a text right now. It says, "Why is Rob so good looking?" that must be Kaylee.
Thanks, Kaylee. I appreciate it. That's a great question.
We don't know, and we kind of disagree.
We also like to have fun here on the podcast, so that's good. But I hope you're blessed by this. I hope you you learned something. And Catalyst, everyone else, we'll see you next week.